everything that you're doing to make it possible. And I'm Dr. David Koh. I ran hedge funds for 30 years. Since COVID, I've been working with grassroots communities. And this is because I realized that from the hedge fund world, the investment world is actually not going to be able to provide the answers to the challenges and the problems that we face. And I began working with grassroots communities in order to really learn about a new approach, a new understanding. So I'm here to talk about a new approach to climate change. And it's the subject of my new book, Thriving at Nature's Pace. And I want to start first by saying we underestimate climate change. We think of this as very much like a problem for the science and a problem for the governments, and it's about our energy and those sort of things. But actually, it's much deeper than that. And the biggest problem of it, and this is from my kind of hedge fund experience, is that our world is all connected. And it's just like at the moment what's happening with energy. There's a war going on in the Gulf of Iran, and as a result, energy prices are going up. We are thinking that it may affect our food and everything else. But what's not actually reported is one of the reasons why Iran was having all the internal demonstrations and the problems that led to other countries being able to take advantage of that was because of climate change, because it had been suffering through several years of intense drought. And when you don't have water, your life gets very difficult. And consequently, your governments find it much more difficult to provide for you. And that's the sort of challenges that makes me want to think about this. And I want to think about it today with you from the perspective of businesses. And this is because we all need to make money. Whatever it is that we think we want to do to bring about good in the world, we need to do it in a way that allows us also to eat. And that's why, whether we're self-employed, or whether we build our own businesses, or whether we work for a business, we're always involved in this process of making money. And so I want to ask, what does climate change mean to you if you're a business? And maybe then you can think about why we do want a different approach. So let's start by asking what happens if you were flooded out of your home. And, we've seen floods in many countries in the recent past, in the recent years. This is something that we can quite readily imagine happening. We've seen quite strong rains and strong winds and all the rest of it. And the question is, if you were flooded out of your home, is that going to make it easier or harder for your business to carry on? Now, that's worth thinking about. But what happens if you are okay, but it's actually someone who works for you, one of your staff who's flooded out of your home? How would that make that? Would it be in the same way? Would it be even more important? And ultimately, where it comes down to is what happens if it's your customer who's flooded out of your home. Because a lot of our businesses have customers which are far away, especially in today where many things are digitized and so on. So it means that we're going to be impacted by what happens far away in the world in the way that we never were, because our customers live there. Would being flooded out of their home mean that they're actually going to have more money to spend, in which case it's great? Or is it more likely that they're going to have to tighten their belt? At the end of the day, this is what everything boils down to. Whether you'll be able to make enough profit to stay around. And if your business can't do that, then you won't be able to help people in the way that you want. And that's why I think it's worth thinking about a new approach. So how can you stay sufficiently profitable even with climate change? There are generally two ways to go about this. On the one hand, what you can do is increase your revenues. And on the other hand, what you typically do is you try and cut your costs. And I want to tell you that actually neither of these two ways is actually going to work. And that's because climate change and adjusting to it is a moving target. Just when you think you're getting somewhere, climate change is going to move on to another phase and it's going to make it worse again. So if you're spending money to try and increase your revenue, you may find that you're going to have to keep spending again, and eventually you run out. And if you're cutting costs in order to try and cope with what's going on, that may work as a one-off, but if you keep cutting, you're going to find you're going to end up with nothing left to cut. So what you need to do instead is to be more intentional. And we've heard this in a lot of the conversations so far. I've been listening on since the early morning. And very much one theme that comes out from their personal stories is how they are themselves. And for business, that's the same too. You need to be more intentional because every business delivers a value proposition. If it doesn't deliver this, then all that a business does is to sell goods or services that another business can just as well sell. And that means that there's no reason for your customer to come back to you, which is why if they do come back to you, they're actually seeing something in you that's more than just the widgets or the services that you're offering. And that's your value proposition. To be more intentional means to make sure that everything you do is focused to delivering this value proposition. And there's one more step that you need. And that is that this value proposition has to be also your own motivation. Your own motivation is what's going to get you out of bed when things are not working well. And if it's to do something different than the value proposition that your customer sees, then you're going to get disconnected and it's not going to work. But if you actually align them together, then it doesn't matter whether things are difficult. You're still going to be getting out of bed, and that keeps your business going, and your customers are still going to come to you, and that pays you. And that's how you're more likely to be able to generate sufficient profits to stay around. Let's take an example that can be quite helpful. Supposing that you're a supermarket. Supermarket sells all sorts of things, but your value proposition may be that it's convenient. If that's the case, that needs to be reflected in everything that you do. That means that when the customers go into your shops, it's convenient for them to find their things. When they go on your website, it's actually quite a pleasure and convenient to navigate through. It also means if there are problems and complaints, that actually that's very convenient for your customers in how you can deal with them so that they feel you've made their day a bit easier. And that is important because you need to let your customer know that you know what they want. So your slogans need to say that. Maybe it says, make every day an easier day for you. And that needs to become your passion. So while you have a think about that, I want to actually then add, there's one more thing you need to add on to this. Because is it necessary that you're more intentional in your business? But if you really want to thrive with climate change, that's not going to be enough. Climate change is going to keep getting worse. And as I described, the consequences of it is social. It is not quite the energy and those sort of things. It's the social consequences, social unrest. And that always affects businesses. So if you can't find a way to put a lid on it, then it's ultimately going to become too much. And the reason why it's so difficult to deal with climate change is because as long as people can make money using oil and gas and coal, they're going to do it. And that applies to governments too. And the governments are the owners of these materials. And as long as they can make money with these materials, they're going to carry on using them. Which is why the conventional idea that you just add a lot more renewable energy is missing the point. What that provides, you need that, is more energy to use. So if you want to put a lid on climate change, you have to address how people can make money, and you have to address how they can make money by leaving oil and gas and coal in the ground. which then comes to the proposal, the central proposal. And I want to take a moment for everybody to gather their thoughts, just to kind of like think about where we are, take a breath, because this is very new. I'm going to suggest we do this by creating a new currency. And I call this Thrive Coins. And this currency is minted by leaving oil and gas and coal in the ground. How can it work? Imagine you have a few dollars and a few cents in your pockets. What you can do with it is you can buy a barrel of oil or gas or equivalent in gas or coal that's still in the ground. Who you're paying is your government because they are the owners. And when we buy them, we become the new owner. And we can then decide what happens to them, whether they're taken out, extracted, or whether they're not. So we need to be careful about which ones we buy. And the ones you want to buy are the ones that lie beyond the limit of what you think are going to be necessary for you to use. So in that way, you're making a commitment yourself to have a limit to how much you will use. And that limit is that lid on climate change. So you become part of creating that lid. But of course, now that you own it, you have a bit of a problem. You started with a few dollars and a few cents, and now you've got all these materials that you don't want to use, and you still need to make money. So what you do is you sell it, and you sell it to someone who will never use it. And of who would that be? Well, that's our planet itself. That's nature. We are actually going to sell it back to nature. And for that, what we're asking is that nature can pay us for doing this. So we invent a new money, nature's money, what I call Thrive Coins. Each coin is minted for each barrel of oil and gas and coal that we return. And then when you have a look at that and think about what you've done, is you've taken your dollars and your cents, and you've translated it, exchanged it for Thrive Coins. So it's a bit like when you go traveling and you change your local currency into that foreign currency. Except Thrive Coins is a currency for every country that you can use anywhere in the world. Let me come back to this. So let's think about an example of how you can actually make money with Thrive Coins. What matters is that people can use it. If you hold Thrive Coins and it is money, if you can go and buy a coffee with it, or you can actually go and pay someone to do something with it. So supposing you're that supermarket again, and you probably have a loyalty program. And what this loyalty program does, it helps you to offer discounts so that your customers can come back to you. And what it will also do is allow you to understand how your customers spend their money. And for businesses, that's one of the most important things. With climate change, there's a good chance that your customers are going to have to tighten their belts. And if that's the case, they're going to have to be shopping around a lot more, which means that they'll be spending their money in other shops and not in your shops. And in that case, your loyalty program is not really going to help you that much. But Thrive Coins still can. They are digital currency, which means that they can be used anywhere. And that can allow you to understand how they're spending money and how you can work with other businesses to help you. This is a bit like air miles. We've probably seen them when we travel, and we're probably collecting them yourself. And people can earn air miles by spending money. And they can spend air miles in lots of different ways. They can spend it by paying for coffee. They can buy insurance with it. They can rent cars, book holidays. They can even actually pay for spa treats. So air miles are not just for flights. And so in that way, Thrive Coins are there to help you connect with other businesses. It helps you to know how customers are facing the challenges they are, and so that together you can look for new opportunities. And in the climate changing world, that is incredibly useful. Because what a business then engaged with in using and accepting Thrive coins is going to be helping more businesses to be engaged in using Thrive coins. And ultimately, what that means is that it helps everybody in understanding the world that they face and how people are adjusting to it. And there's an added bonus, of course. And that added bonus is that you're actually putting a lid on climate change. So what kind of businesses can do this? Just as another example, imagine you're a promoter of BTS. This is a South Korean K-pop group. It's been in the news because it's just reformed. And there's like 100 million fans around the world. And they will want to pay an arm and a leg for the chance to see them perform. So Thrive coins become a new opportunity for them to engage. You can offer priority bookings for any fans using Thrive coins. And this will bring a freshness and a novelty that the fans may want to engage with. And of course, for the fans who are interested in climate change, it actually fulfills what they themselves want. And this is the thing. Climate change is ultimately about the shape of the future we want. And businesses using Thrive coins are working with their customers to explore this, which is why Thrive coins is a new approach, and it puts you, your business, and your customers in charge. So what do we do? How do we do this? When can we start? And the answer is we shouldn't wait too long. We don't need to worry about all the details because the details can always work themselves out. What matters is that we start somewhere because we always have to do that. And now is as good as a place to start. And what's more important is that climate change is only going to get worse. That makes it like boiling a frog. At some point, the frog is going to have to jump. But if it leaves it too late, then it may be too late to jump. And we need to remember climate change hurts us by hurting others. So even if we think we're relatively safe, our customers may not be. And so if we can engage with them in a way that helps them and allows them to know that we're together with them, that's only going to make your business that little bit better. And it's more likely to help you to deliver your value proposition, help you to be more intentional. That then is this new approach to climate change. We need to be more intentional about what we do. That is, we need to be clear about the value proposition we offer. We need to connect that with what genuinely motivates us, because that way we know no matter what happens, we're still going to be getting out of bed in the morning and do that. And we are offering what our customers want with that. We know they're there to be part with us. And that's what it means to be intentional in that way. But that alone is not enough, because as long as people can make money from oil and gas and coal, they're going to use it, which is why we need a new currency. And when we use this currency, when we make money with this new currency, we're making money with nature as our partner. And that's how we can have a lid on climate change. And that's how we're going to thrive through it. So I'm Dr. David Koh. I ran hedge funds for 30 years. And since COVID, I've been working with grassroots communities. My call to action is quite simple. Connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, or you can email me. And check out my books, Thriving at Nature's Pace and The Unsustainable Truth. And I want to thank you for your time. And please feel free if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful presentations. It's a really to nowadays it's very important to regard the nature and all the things. Like I don't get any question but I have one question from my side. Like, does green always mean expensive?
I think what we mistake is the question between the value we want to pay and the number we have on the label for the goods. And very often, the value we want to pay, this is the value proposition, is that you're actually paying for more than just the goods. And if you can demonstrate as a business that that is genuine, that is real, and you do get more than the goods, then the price you're going to pay is going to be a better price. When you look just simply as a business to say, I'm cheaper and I can do that, then you're selling a different story to your customer. You're saying, all I'm doing is looking after your wallet, but I don't actually look at your values. So this is the way I would say, it's not always better to pay more, because there are people who just want to charge more without you offering genuinely anything more. But what really matters is actually, what does the goods or the services that this person is providing represent? How is this person actually making the effort to bring that little bit more to it?